I think one of the main messages from the OECD report that was extremely interesting and useful for us is that it's good that we strived for more competition and for fighting concentration levels, but that competition also needs to be further strengthened. And this means that our persistence over the past 5 years to do this, to fight concentration, to be strict, to promote competition, was justified, despite the fact that we received a lot of criticism, particularly from the business sector at times, for doing this. And this means also that the government must continue with this persistence and be strict about it, because it's always the case that when you promote competition, there are other factors outside of competition that are in conflict with competition. And there's always pressure then to move to the less competitive outcome because of these external factors. But if the government decides to fight the high cost of living in Israel and to promote competition, then it has to be determined to promote competition, even though there is a price that might be paid. Even though there's a price that might be paid with regard to the factors outside of competition, because you can't have the cake and eat it as well. So you have to decide. If you want to promote competition, you need to be strict about it. So this means, with regard to the level of regulation, like Claude mentioned, there's good regulation and bad regulation. So you have to reduce the bad regulation, like technical standards and tariffs and barriers to import, etc. But you need to maintain and even enhance competition law, which is the very type of regulation that strives for promotion of competition, of course, with minimum bureaucracy, etc. But I think one main challenge that we have been pursuing in the past 5 years is indeed fighting the high costs of food in the food sector. And the government has done many things in this respect, and Claude mentioned this. And in the report itself, there's more detail about what the government has done. And among other things, I think a very important tool here is the food law that was legislated about a year ago. And I want to join the recommendation of the OECD report that the food law needs to be strictly implemented and enforced in order for it to work, both with regard to the code of conduct between retailers and suppliers, and with regard to fighting concentration, local geographic concentration of retail outlets. With regard to the banking sector, the report emphasizes the high degree of concentration in this sector, particularly with regard to households and small businesses. And here I have 2 comments in the context of the draft recommendations of the Strum committee. First, the separation between credit card companies and the banks that own and control them. I think this is a good move because obviously the credit card companies are potential competitors in this concentrated market of credit to households and small businesses, and they can't really compete with the banks when they're owned and controlled by the banks. But that's why I don't understand why postpone the separation between Cal, a very large credit card company that has about a third of the credit card market in Israel, and the 2 banks that own and control it. These are relatively large banks. And the same logic that justifies the separation of the other credit card companies from the banks that own them, also even more so justifies the separation of CAL, because CAL is reluctant to compete not only with one bank, but with the two banks that own and control it. Another comment I have about the draft recommendations of the Sturm Committee is with regard to the transfer to daily acquiring of transactions. Because in most countries, even when the consumer pays with the credit card late, then the merchant receives the money from the transaction within 1 day. And this is very important for reducing the costs of merchants and also substantially reducing the entry barriers into the credit card market for new credit card companies that want to compete over merchants. And the plan at the time was that we're going to move to daily acquiring of transactions once Shva is opened to competition. Shva is the company controlling the credit card switch, which is owned by the banks. And we had a proceeding vis-a-vis Shva that found that Shva's system is closed to competition because of technical and compatibility issues. And we decided to open Shva to competition actually last month. So last month this should have happened, and we said that once Shva is open to competition, this is a good time to move to daily acquiring of transactions that I mentioned before. And that is why I don't understand why the recommendations of the Sturm Committee say that the transfer to daily acquiring of transactions would happen only in about 5 years. This would raise the barriers to entry into the credit card market and also keep the costs of merchants high. A merchant is actually forced currently to give credit to consumers. And often he has to finance this credit by taking loans from the banks in a very concentrated industry. So I think this is problematic and could have been fixed earlier. Now, another thing with regard to banking is I want to join the report's recommendation regarding the postal company in Israel, because the postal company, with all of its shortcomings, one thing that it has that other companies doesn't have is a very vast network of branches throughout the Israeli market, and this is something that typically the new entrants into the credit market won't have. So I think it's important to enhance the ability of the postal company to become a platform that can be used in order to compete with banking services of the other banks. Regarding the separation of the electricity company between transmission and distribution and generation, again, I wanted to join wholeheartedly the recommendations of the report. I want to remind that back in July 2013, we sent a letter to the ministers involved, the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Economy, and the Minister of Finance, advocating precisely this restructuring of the Israeli electric company. And another recommendation I want to join wholeheartedly is increasing the administrative fines for antitrust violations, because currently there is a cap of 24 million shekel. And this legislation started with our proposal that the cap would be up to 10% of the turnover of the violating company, just as it is in Europe. And unfortunately, against our will, during the process of legislation, this cap was reduced to 24 million. And I think with such a cap, many of the large companies would not be deterred from committing the violation. At the same time, I think it's very important to maintain the criminal liability that we have in Israel for some of the antitrust violations. This is an extremely important tool for many violations that you can't prosecute and you can't investigate using the administrative tool. And I think that part of the reason that the leniency program isn't used much in Israel is that the sentences that the courts give are too lenient themselves. I know that there has been an improvement recently with the bakery cartel, where the court issued sentences of 1 year imprisonment, and also the Supersol case shows a more strict approach by the courts. But still, compared to the US average, for example, where we have an average punishment of 25 months imprisonment for cartel violations, still the average in Israel is much lower. Thank you.